you the best. God damn these fucking Mexicans ruining my fucking show! Anyway.
He's got the leaf blower out now.
What the fuck?
I think they hurt you in this.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Blue State Survivalist. You've got me, you've got Aeroshogun. We're sponsored by the Dollhouse and RocketHeater.com. You can check out either of them. Please help. If you can, please give any donations that you can. You'll see the Streamlabs and the PayPal link in the description. Thanksgiving's coming up. It's been a very tough year. I just want to get right to it. Sorry to rush through everybody. Shogun, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. Well, or should I say better than it was last week?
You got a story for me?
Yeah. So for those of you that were watching Raging Golden Eagle stream yesterday, you probably already know, but for those who don't, get a load of this. So, and of course, this is happening in California, no surprise, but the chief security officer of Apple got caught bribing the police with, I believe it was $75,000 worth of iPads, just so they could get, I believe it was 4 concealed carry permits. Now, considering this is California, it goes to show you that even if there is some sort of socialist utopia, if you're part of the ruling class, if you've got money, you can still, bypass all of the quote unquote inequalities.
Well, just out of curiosity, why did they believe they needed carry permits?
You know what? I'm not sure. All I heard is that this is what they did. And considering how California is when it comes to concealed carry permits, you apply for one and they're like, well, do you need it right now? Like, is there someone coming after you or stalking you or blah, blah, blah? And well, no one's coming at me directly. He said, oh, well, you don't need it. That's how ridiculously hard it is to get something like that in California. Now, I don't know if it's much harder to get it in New Jersey or what, but I can only, because you've already told me what you've had to deal with to get it.
So here, let me explain to you how difficult it is in New Jersey, and I'm sure California is just as hard, if not harder. Okay, in New Jersey, you can only apply for a concealed carry permit if you can prove absolute need at the moment. And let's say you were like Andy No, right? And you report on Antifa, and they're constantly saying they're going to kick your ass and stuff like that. That's not good enough. You have to have a real specific reason, and that reason is one that can't be covered by the police. So the reason I got one is because I report on ISIS, and I'm on 5 or 6 kill on sight lists, and I got the FBI to give me a letter saying that there's a clear and present threat to my life, even though there really isn't. Every reporter in America is on these lists, right? But first I had to apply. I had to go through a state police background check, which is the equivalent of an FBI background check for security clearance. And then I had to go through, but in front of a judge for superior court to convince them that I really needed it. And then they only issue it for 2 years. And after 2 years, you have to go through the whole process again as if you've never had it. They give no credit to the fact that you've had one for 2 years. That doesn't even matter. So mine's up in August, and I doubt I'm even gonna apply again, because if you get turned down, then on form I forgot the name of the form because here it doesn't have a name, but the form you fill out for a background check when you go to buy any gun, and it asks, have you ever been turned down for a permit in any state? If they do turn it down, then you have to put that on all the forms you fill out, so it could stop your ability to get them.
Oh, no, that sucks.
Yeah.
My. If I were in New Jersey, I'd probably be spending every moment of my life trying to get out of there. I understand that it's not that easy for you, but you get the idea.
Yeah, no, I'm working on it. At this point, I'm considering Florida. Like, originally, I was totally against Florida just for, heat reasons and bugs and shit like that. But at this point, Florida seems to be like the red bastion of freedom, that has everything. They have jobs. They have fucking good prices on land. Their property taxes are more than reasonable. Great stand your ground laws, good gun laws. I mean, they're changing the laws so that you can basically shoot people who try to riot in front of you. And they refuse. Their governor has said they will not lock down under any circumstances.
Yep. That's why I have no regrets about coming to Florida.
Yeah, I'm encouraging everybody to go. I'll know where I'm going in like the next 8 months. I want to finish up my courses here, just to get everything done and not interrupt everybody and all that, and then I'm going to make my decision where I'm going to go. Because fuck this place. I mean,
right.
It's bad enough being in a blue state when you have a red president, and you know that, like, at the very least the gun laws aren't going to probably change that much. But at this point, like, Biden wants to make California gun laws like nationwide. So if they're going to do that, then, I mean, New Jersey, California, and New York always try to outpace the federal government. So if the federal government says, like, this is the standard, they'll try to make it even worse. Like, they'll ban everything. They're just going to make it so you can have, like, a fucking musket at this point. And, I mean, Biden, we're going to go over this now. It was bad enough when he announced what he was going to do, like, during the campaign on his website. But now he's gone even more insane. I mean, now he wants to qualify all, quote-unquote, assault rifles under the FNA. And, I mean, $200 per year tax on every AR-15 you have, every AK-47, everything. And you can't buy new ones or new parts.
Well, yeah, that sounds very democratic, quote unquote. But it doesn't surprise me in the slightest because, I mean, well, for one, I know that they've been warning me even when I was young. They're coming after the quote unquote assault rifles, the high capacity magazines, and so forth. Whereas now, if Biden were to become president and he were to implement these things, and a lot of people would just become felons overnight. Now, some people will register their guns, others won't. I won't, that's for sure. And I'm not registering my high capacity magazines either.
So I know when they banned high capacity magazines here in New Jersey, they didn't I know in California they grandfathered in the old ones. So if you originally had them, you could still have them. But here they didn't even grandfather in the old ones. They just said you have to give them up. Now, I don't know if it's changed, but most people I know just didn't. Like they just kept them and just didn't say anything. And the cops, it's not like they were like going door to door. They don't even know who has them.
Yeah.
But for me personally, because I have a concealed carry, I gave mine up because if I got caught with one, like the fine is minimal if you get caught with a quote unquote high capacity magazine here. So I would have kept them, but at the same time, like if I do get caught with one, like I can't train with them. If you go to the range with one, they'll immediately call the police if they see you with a magazine over 10 rounds. And if I get caught with one, I not only lose my concealed carry, I'll lose all my guns because it's a high level enough misdemeanor. It might, I don't remember, it might even be considered a felony at this point. But either way, it's enough to have you lose your gun license, period.
Oh, my goodness. But I forgot what I was about to say. But in response to that. And frankly, I can't see now. Oh, now I remember. Now, remember when you were saying how gun control is effectively dead because all these people, these first-time buyers, they're not only buying guns, but they're not going to give them up. Now, I'm still pressing X to doubt on that because there's one thing I've noticed that people, they just tend to not only obey the law, but it's like they don't, when you tell them to jump, they don't even ask how high. They just start jumping. That's been my observation. And a lot of people, they don't want to become felons. And especially people that have never had a felony in their life. So, like, what's to say that people did, because I just having a hard time imagining, like, because you said this a while ago. You said that if Kamala Harris were to become president and then she were just all of a sudden just start banning guns willy nilly, then people would essentially just round her up, hang her, and shoot her or whatever. I just don't see that happening. Even with all the new gun owners, with the record number of gun sales and everything, I know that the Democrats have got to do something if they're gonna, get rid of guns before things go really south, like welfare state goes bankrupt, of course, or globalism or what have you, Great Reset, whatever you want to call it. So I believe people are just going to lay down and take it. I hope not.
So here's the issue about, we've talked about this before, and my position about gun control hasn't changed in terms of banning guns. What Biden, and remember, Biden is not the puppet master. Biden is the puppet.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like Biden is sitting there like, in a huddled meeting going, okay, how do we get the guns? Okay, he's just being told, like, this is how we do it. And they're finally getting, I don't want to say smart because what they're doing is retarded, but at the same time, they're getting smart about how to finally do it. They've always just said, like, I mean, look at Beto O'Rourke, right? He said, I'm coming for your AR-15, I'm coming for your AK-47. And I think it got, like, it made his likability from, like, 10% to, like, nothing. Right? Like, you don't win nationally. And trust me, it's not just about elections. I mean, if you want to spark a revolution, which, trust me, we're ready on a powder keg right now, just announce you're coming for the guns. But he's not coming for the guns. And he's not going to just say federally, okay, they're all banned. He's just going to make it so expensive to own one that you'd rather just not go through the hassle. And he'll do it incrementally. He's not going to make you register every gun and pay the $200 tax. It'll just be AR-15s, AK-47s, Uzis, and things like that. So most people, it's not that they'll like willingly turn over their guns because they're pussies. It's just they'll go, oh, okay, well, I don't need an AR-15 bad enough that I'm willing to pay this tax. And they'll figure, well, I still got, my bolt action, I still got my handguns, so it doesn't matter. And there'll be a lot of other states that they just don't comply. They're not going to send the FBI into every single town and in the country. And most cops aren't going to, like, start bothering. But the IRS will just send you a tax bill. If they know you have one, they'll just start sending you a tax bill. And if you and I know we all like to make jokes about it, like, oh, sorry, I lost mine in a fishing accident. I mean, me personally, like here in New Jersey, and I'm sure in Washington and California and all that, they know what guns I have. Like, they're all registered already. So it's not like I can sit back and go, oh, okay, I never had one in the first place. But in most states, they technically aren't supposed to know you have one at all.
Yeah, well, at one point I was thinking that the federal government already knew who had guns and who doesn't. So I guess that's part of the reason why polymer 80s were becoming so popular. And of course, the Democrats are trying to not only do away with that, but they also want to regulate milling machines for the purpose of stopping people from making those guns. But of course, you'll never, ever truly stop people from doing that. I mean, look at Australia. They took the schematics to a PA Ludi, which is basically like a homemade version of an MP40. I don't recall exactly what the firing rate on it was when PA Ludi, that's the name of the guy who created it, was. I don't remember if it was fully automatic or semi-automatic. But yeah, the guys in Australia, they made them fully automatic. They fired pretty fast, and it was pretty wicked. So you'll never truly stop people from having guns. You'll never stop criminals from getting guns, of course.
Yeah, but their goal has never been to stop criminals. Like, they don't care about that.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, the thing is that they want to stop law-abiding people from getting it because, those are the people they fear the most. The so-called criminals tend to be their voters anyway, so they don't really care that much. But yes, I do agree that they're essentially taking the Second Amendment and essentially just taking a file and then just kind of filing it down slowly but surely. Or maybe you could just use the frog in the pot analogy,
right?
Because because there were so many things. Because even if you look at the last few years, maybe like the last 10 years, I mean, think of what you could have then, but what you can't have now. I mean, bump stocks, no, that's finally been banned. Soy cucks are finally happy about that. Pretty sure they're going to go after binary triggers next. Although in this state, you can definitely get them. I recommend getting them if you really want them. I want to get some. Then they're probably going to come after like stabilizing grips and stuff like that, which ultimately make no sense because if you can aim better with a stabilizing grip, then why not?
I mean, it's one thing that they're pretty smart about is that a lot of the stuff that they ban are things that you wouldn't care about anyway. Like, I don't care that I can't have full auto. Like, even the military is getting away from full auto. I mean, the only real purpose of full auto is to lay down cover fire.
Right.
You know, like, you're just wasting ammo if you're just spraying and praying if someone's coming after you. And the chance, like, I mean, if you're dealing with like a 30-round mag, and you just pull the trigger on a full and hold it down on a fully auto, like it'll be out in I think like 11 seconds. You know,
I thought it would be even faster than that, depending on the weapon. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, probably it would be even. I mean, I'm talking like you like small burst, right? So if you want, like, I mean, if I wanted to, I can make my guns fully auto, you know, with a quick conversion kit. And you could still find them online. Like, I mean, they're not illegal to sell the conversion kits because they can be used for other things. So, but again, it's something that they did just to be dicks. Like, there's nothing about full auto that makes it, you know, better than 3-shot burst or single fire. In fact, single fire is probably more lethal. You know, because you're going for 1 shot, 1 kill.
Right. You have to focus more on what exactly you're shooting. I mean, because ultimately, you're definitely right about fully automatic. Because a lot of times when you're shooting, you still have to keep that gun stabilized. Because when you have multiple rounds going off in less than a second, because you're feeling the kickback and you're essentially shooting further in the air, it goes the same with automatic pistols. Because you're eventually going to be shooting into the air and you're going to be wasting ammo and not really going to be, it's very unnecessary. I mean, the Glock 18, it sounds cool, but to me, it just doesn't seem practical.
It's not practical. And you know what it's more for? It's for idiots that fucking, you know, they watch too many movies and they just picture themselves like running into a fray and just start spraying in every direction. I mean, again, it's not something enough people cared about. I'm still not happy that Reagan cucked like that and got rid of them, just because we have enough to worry about with the Democrats. Like, guns should be an issue that at the very least a Republican just doesn't deal with. Like, if they say we're going to do X or we're going to do Y, like, it should be something that Republicans just say no, we're not doing anything with guns. We're not banning anything. We're not modifying anything. We're not fucking nothing. Because there's so many other issues to deal with. Like, why would you... Well, you know, they're on such a tear about gun control. Why don't we just give them this? Or just give them that? Or just give them this? Like, why? Like, are bump stocks so prevalent and used in so many crimes? Like, they were used in that one shooting in Las Vegas, supposedly. But we don't know anything about it. Like, right after that shooting happened... They basically fucking retconned the whole idea that it even happened. We don't even know anything about it. They've released no details. And it was the worst mass shooting in American history, supposedly.
Right.
And then everyone went on this tear, like, oh, well, with a bump stock, you could do this or you could do that. But nobody gave a shit. Like, I personally didn't even know anybody that owned one. And the couple people online that I met that had them, they said they had them because it was like a novelty.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard of a bump stock, I mean, it seemed cool, but realistically, it's not something that you would realistically use in many cases. At least I don't imagine that. Because if there's one thing I've learned is that every shot counts, and a well-placed shot is better than the biggest and the baddest gun. Because let's say you have a minigun, and you have 5,000 rounds, and then you could just mow me down in any second. But if you can't even hit me, and yet I just have a Mauser that just shoots 7.92 by 57. One shot to the head, and it's over. And I've got your guns, and so on. So if you can't hit your target, if you can't effectively use the weapon, it doesn't make a difference.
Again, I mean, I had a friend who was in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, right? And he used to say all the time that like when they were going after terrorists, the guys would like they would hide behind like a brick wall and just like kind of raise their gun above the wall and just spray indiscriminately, like trying, and they would never hit anything. And then the minute they raised their head up to see like what was going on, a sniper would just take them out. You know,
Yeah.
I understand that there was this big scary thing about drive-by shootings, and they were like, well, with full auto, they, could spray so much and blah, blah, blah. Again, if you were shooting one bullet at a time, you're more likely to hit something and actually cause damage than if you just spray for 5 seconds and need to reload. And if you do need to reload, that's like when you can get taken out easier. So it just seems like gun control always comes from this avenue of, oh, well, this sounds scary, so we're going to ban it because it sounds scary. It's not based on any evidence. Like everything they do, it's not based on any evidence at all.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like the difference between polymer and wooden-based guns. I was trying to say wooden finish guns. You can, like, if I take my Mauser out and I take out, let's say I take out like a Ruger 1022 that has a polymer finish, and I say, hey guys, which one looks scarier? They say, oh, it's the Ruger 22. That looks scarier because it's got a polymer finish. And people, they don't really think about that. Where, I mean, yeah, a 22 can be kind of scary to get hit by, considering how well it can ricochet off of ribs and stuff like that, from what I heard. But a Mauser, that's one of the last things I want to get hit by. A Mauser is definitely a lot more dangerous.
It's all, again, it's after what makes you scared more. Hearing about, like, I mean, do you know how many people I've met who truly believe that because a Glock has a polymer lower, that you can sneak them onto airplanes, that the metal detectors won't pick them up?
That's definitely further from the truth.
But
Because,
I know people who believe that.
yeah,
Never mind the fact that the bullets are still made out of metal. Like, even if the entire gun was polymer, which is ridiculous, or if it was 3D printed, you still need to get the bullets on the plane too. And if security is so lax that you can get the bullets on, you can get the gun on too.
uh, yeah. Well, frankly, now I've never used a Glock that didn't have any metal parts within it. The slide has always been metal for me. The internal components that actually operate the trigger and actually put in the next bullet into the chamber and everything, that's always been metal for me. Now I know Washington State did a ban on those types of weapons, so you couldn't just get them into airports and stuff like that, along with their ban on ghost guns. You can buy a polymer 80, but you can't assemble it, because if you assemble it, that becomes a misdemeanor.
Right.
So yeah, they've been thinking about these kind of things. It's
They,
really not that simple.
they've always been thinking about them, but that's the problem with authoritarians in a democratic setting like we have here, is that they'll keep pushing and they'll keep trying what works until it doesn't work anymore. Like, as I said, they tried the assault weapons ban, and the biggest argument against it was that gun crime didn't go down at all. In fact, it went up in a lot of places when they did the assault weapons ban.
Right. Look at Chicago.
Right. They had to contend with the fact that once they did it, that Republicans could at least come out and say, well, look, it didn't work. So your big scary idea of, oh, we're getting rid of the weapons of war, like, looks like the war didn't really go anywhere. So what they'll do is they'll just keep looking for arguments until they find one that works. Like, it doesn't sound unreasonable for a person to get up there and explain to people that there's an exception for gun manufacturers, that if they produce a gun and it's used in a crime, they can't be sued. Unless, of course, the gun was, like, specifically manufactured bad or something like that. So that sounds completely reasonable. except for the fact that nobody thinks it through. No one thinks through that if you take away liability protection, then every single lawyer will sue every single day for every single gun crime, to the point where even just defending the lawsuits will bankrupt the gun manufacturers. And even if it doesn't bankrupt them, a gun that costs $500 is now going to cost $5,000 because of the liability. But they're able to say it because it sounds reasonable. That's why they always call it common sense gun law. You know, none of these things are common sense.
Yeah. And I can definitely, see what you just said is happening because if you look at Japan, now they basically have like next to zero gun crime because, well, their culture is different. Yeah, you can have a shotgun for hunting and so forth, but of course you have to go through the background check. You have to go through the psych evaluation, all that good stuff. They talk to your neighbors, and then if they say that you're okay, then they'll let you own the shotgun. They'll let you take a few courses and stuff like that, and you're good. But that doesn't mean that there's no pistols or anything like that in Japan. Because if you have the money, you can just go to the Yakuza, and they will maybe get you like a 1911 for like 12,000 or something like that. The price is really ridiculous, but you can still get one there.
You see, I understand that, but I mean, when you look at the crime statistics in America, right? I forgot what the exact cities are, but I think it's like if you took out St. Louis, Chicago, L.A., and New Orleans, like four cities or five cities, America has less gun crime than any country in Europe. You know, right. The idea that, it's there's guns everywhere here and that's why we have problems is actually ridiculous. Like, our gun culture is a good thing. It's just that there's these unique and all those places where the gun crime is out of control all have the strictest gun control laws that you can get.
Yep.
So it's not even like you could sit there and be like, well, it's because of our ridiculous constitution that... No, like, they already have gun control in all these places. It just doesn't stop criminals from getting guns. Right.
But speaking of that, there is this one leftist that was saying that the Second Amendment exists to stop black slaves from ever having an uprising.
Yeah, that's never been actually true. Like, there's no evidence for that. It's not like that was an argument some people made and they were just being dicks. Like, no one has ever made that argument until maybe last year or the year before.
Yeah, it's the dumbest thing that I've read in a long time. Well, of course, it's if the average libtard knew history, chances are they wouldn't be libtards in general.
But I mean, think about the stupidity of what they're arguing. They're saying that at the time of the Second Amendment, it was put in place to stop black people from getting guns and rising up against the slave masters. Now, blacks weren't considered citizens. They weren't considered free. They couldn't own property, but we needed a constitutional amendment to stop them from getting guns. Like, they weren't allowed to own anything, but they were... If we hadn't had the Second Amendment, they still would have been able to buy guns. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And they try to... It's always the same thing. Like, you'll hear them talk about the 3/5 compromise. And they'll say, well, at the time, they only valued blacks as 3/5 of a people. That's how racist people were. That was actually a compromise. The slave owners wanted them to count as 100% of a person. Because then they would, for under the terms of the census, they would have more power. Because they'd be able to vote for their slaves. It was the North who said no. If you're going to keep them enslaved, then you can't count them as a full person in terms of the census. It was actually an anti-racist thing. But libtards, they don't care. Like, in their mind, hey, my college professor said it, or I read it in the New York Times, therefore it must be true.
Yeah, the average person doesn't even know how to fact check a lot of things. It's kind of like how the average normally watches CNN, MSNBC, or whatever, and they'll just flat out say that this is actually a conspiracy theory, and there's no evidence that this is or XYZ is true. And it's like, well, they said it, so yeah, it must be true.
Oh yeah, I've heard it, so therefore it must be true.
Right. So basically, gone are the days where people actually not only not only would look up information, but I would actually get the facts to find out whether it's true or not.
Well, here's one of those times where I'm going to make a bit of an excuse for it. Is that up until like the late 80s, right? America was like basically defined by the Cold War. So everything could be blamed on communism or the USSR in general, right? Or China. And that was acceptable for most people. Now we've been conditioned to believe that everything is based on race, right? Everything is because of race. Everybody is obsessed with race. So nowadays when you say, "Oh, the Second Amendment was for this." "Oh, no, it wasn't. It was because of slavery." For people that have been obsessed and heard nothing but race, 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 race for the last 10, 15 years, or even since they were little kids, to them, they still, oh, well, that makes sense. Because everything is about race. This must be about race, too, because America has always been obsessed with race and oppressing, the coloreds. Yeah. Which, we know that's not true, but how do you fact check it? Because what do you say? Well, 300 years ago, people actually weren't racist. Well, no, they definitely were. Like, it's just not, they weren't racist in the same way you think about racism, you fucking libtard moron. Like, back then, like, slave owners, they didn't think of themselves as basically oppressing another race of people. They didn't look at them like, oh, well, these people, that, like, they saw it as, okay, these people are less than human. Does that make them racist? Not in the modern contemporary way of looking at it like, oh, I don't like this person because of the color of their skin. They saw them differently. Like, nowadays when you have someone who goes, oh, they should still be slaves, like, that's just a straight up stupid racist thing to say. Because you're basically saying, I don't like them, therefore I should enslave them. Back then it wasn't a case of whether they liked them or not. It was a system that existed. Right. So now with the race-obsessed culture we live in, I mean, me and TFM were talking about this for a while last night. Like, now that they're finding that too many people can see the statistical anomalies, now Asians are white, and Cubans are white. And it's almost like if you just don't go along with what they say, now you're white. Like, I saw that for purposes of admission, in California universities, Somalians are considered white.
What?
Yeah. So it's on their list.
The stupid. Oh my goodness. It's like, well, I mean, yes, I get that I'm white now. I didn't vote for Biden. Yeah. I'm also part Puerto Rican / Cuban, so that makes me even whiter.
Well, I mean, the problem is that they always say this. They say, oh, okay, well, white people are born with white privilege, right? We have this leg up on the entire world, regardless of whether, we actually have done anything. It's just this automatic privilege card. Okay, so now that you've decided Cubans, like, are white, or that Somalians are white, or Asians are white, like, did they get a card? Like, now did they get, like, oh, here's your white privilege card. Like, you may not have realized that you had white privilege up until now, but now you can.
The whole thing is stupid. But I mean, imagine if I could get myself a white privilege card. I just go into any job interview and say, okay, I'd like to exercise some of my white privilege here.
Yeah, like, oh, thank you so much. Here's my white privilege card. I know I'm not qualified for this job, but hey, I'm white. Like, hook me up. I mean, any business that hired on that basis would go bankrupt instantly.
Right.
So it's not even something that you would want.
My goodness, the stupid.
I mean, and it's looking more and more, I don't know. I know people were optimistic for a while, but I'm starting to wonder if there's anything that could be done. I don't even know if Trump's like trying anymore. There was that Sidney Powell, she's going to release the Kraken, and she has all this evidence, and the entire election's going to get thrown out, and then now Trump's like, yeah, she's not even on my legal team. Like, I hope she's doing good work, but yeah, she doesn't work for me. And now he's like already green-lighted the transition, but he says, don't worry, we're not conceding, we're fighting like, I don't know. I'm starting to think that a Biden presidency might be inevitable, and if they're able to steal it this easily, then they're going to steal the 2 in Georgia as well. And soon we'll have a Democratic Senate, House, and presidency.
Yep, and kiss America goodbye. Although, although maybe you could just say I'm being optimistic, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to, let's say you're building evidence for a court case. It wouldn't make sense to release everything as you come across it, because every time you put something out there, Commie News Network, MSNBC, and all the other news networks are going to say that this is a conspiracy theory and that these are unfounded, and then they'll keep spreading that lie over and over again, even though they have nothing to contest it with. So if it's like the more you keep them in the dark, the better. That would be my mentality. Wait until it's time to release it.
I mean, they're just announcing that the fucking stock market is above 30,000 for the first time ever. They're saying Bitcoin's at 19,000. You know? So, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I really don't. I mean, tonight I'm going to have Goblin Slayer on. We're going to be talking about Boogaloo and stuff like that, but I wouldn't look forward to the coming Civil War. I know a lot of people are thinking to themselves, like, oh, this is going to be awesome. But, I mean, I think that there's a potential for conflict at this point. But I think that most people are just going to sit back and be like, oh, okay, well, Biden presidency. And Biden's not, I'm telling you, he's not going to focus on stuff like gun control. They're going to focus on power, which means they're going to focus on the Supreme Court, about stacking the court. They're going to be focused on starting more foreign wars, on getting back in China's good graces. Like, they're not going to worry about stupid shit for a while. So, I mean, I think we got some time. You know, at least they won't be rioting and going crazy. I mean, we'll probably all be locked down and be fucking bankrupt and begging for stimulus Trump bucks. But, you know.
Well, I'll be honest. I am looking forward to a civil war. I believe we're way overdue. I mean, personally, I think it would be a fantastic thing, especially if we won. But once again, that's just me. That's just me, wanting to just get this over with, wanting to kill some commies, and wanting to kill some libtards.
Now, I had said that right after the 2018 election. I was on a show and it was one of those ones that I went on with V. I've been on like V's channel like 20 times, but he has to delete the streams like 5 minutes after they air, like every time I'm on, because I say something that he says can get him banned. But like I said, like. He said, oh, how you feeling? I said, man, I am so happy right now because I might actually get to shoot some commies in my life. You know, like we might have lived to that time. And you know what? It might happen, but I'm looking less forward to the idea of a civil war than I am that that secession will come, you know?
Well, who knows? Maybe something like that will happen also. But now, when it comes to civil war, now, we all know the same. War is hell. Because nobody, it was in real, I mean, those of you who have ever actually been to war are not going to like get up and just look forward and say, ooh, it's wartime. Let me get my gun so we can make some kills. As I understand, it's not that simple. You're not going to be just the person running and gunning and stuff like it's Contra or Call of Duty. Because in real life, if you're down, you're down. There is no respawn. There is no restart at this checkpoint. So, I mean, you're playing for keeps. I mean, hopefully you come back alive. Hopefully you shoot down range and you come back in one piece. But frankly, I'm beginning to wonder, do people even understand what they're fighting for anymore?
No. I think at this point, it's more of a survival thing. I don't think people have a legitimate feeling of, oh, okay, it's going to be this or it's going to be that, and we want this to happen, we want that. Like, I don't think anybody's thinking like that anymore. I think people are more just like, okay, how do I survive the coming storm?
Well, yeah, I can definitely see that. But with that being said, it also makes me think about like who I used to be. Because I'll be honest, in one way or another, I used to think like I didn't do. I used to think, oh, America's racist and blah, blah, blah. But But as as I get older, I think about the things that my dad taught me when I was younger, and realize that my values are changing. I realize that I've never before appreciated the United States for what it is, as well as the so-called quote unquote freedom that we have. Now, I'm willing to die for it. I'm willing to die for what I believe in. And because honestly, I'm not that kind of person that's going to cling to life that strongly if I can't live the way I want to live. Now, there's other people that say the same thing. Sometimes I think to myself, I'm pressing X to doubt on this guy. But honestly, there comes a time where even I have to put up or shut up.
Right. No, I hear you on that. And listen, I've always admired that about you. I've said that from day one, that like you've been fairly consistent about what's coming and all of that from day one. But Shogun, it's noon. I got to run. I was streaming with TFM till 4 a.m. And not to mention 2 other shows. I am coming back this evening at 9 o'clock and again at midnight. But I've got to go run and actually do some stuff that I didn't do last night because I was streaming like 10 hours yesterday.
No, I did not know you were streaming with TFM. Otherwise, I would have tried and watched. But
bro, it came out of nowhere. I basically, it was, what time was it? It was like 1 a.m. And I wrote in my server, like, I'm bored as fuck. And no one was around. So I went to Monkey Business and was like, yeah, I'm really bored. And TFM was like, oh, I could stream for an hour. You know, a 3-hour tour. And like at 4 o'clock, I was like, dude, I gotta go. I have to go lay down for an hour, you know? So it was like, it was completely, and it was funny. He goes, yeah, my internet's great. So we could go. And we went live and like his internet crapped out like 8 seconds later. So then I put it up on my channel. You know, but tonight I've got Goblin Slayer on at 9. We're gonna straight up be talking Boogaloo. I'm gonna be doing probably an open stream for Insomniac as long as I'm still like conscious at that point. So maybe you come back at midnight and join us. You know, we're gonna just hang out in the Discord and put it live on the channel and start talking about how we're going to deal with a Sleepy Joe president.
All right. Maybe I'll be there. Hopefully I'll still be awake.
Okay, man. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. I will talk to you guys very shortly. I really enjoyed the Shogun. We'll have to start picking a day and time that'll be consistent every week now, so that we could start doing this once or twice a week, like at a standard time. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Visit the sponsors. Please make some donations. Talk to you soon.
Fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
In all honesty, a border wall or steel slats won't work. But great bodies of water will separate us from the horrible Mexican rapists. Introducing the 2019 Trump Great Border Moat. Stocked with the most aggressive penis fish, incredible man-eating alligators, and unbelievable genetically modified moose-cocked rape dolphins, as well as flying, migrant-eating sharkfish. So incredible.
I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.